European Cup Winners' Cup. Next week, they're due to make history of another kind when they invite fans to buy into Manchester United plc. Turning a football club into a public limited company is a bold move, especially when you consider what's happened to the first English club to go public. Tottenham Hotspur may be playing in Saturday's Cup final, but after the game, win or lose, it looks like they'll have to sell their best players to reduce their £18 million debt. Nobody has been able to establish how they got into that position. Until now. Chris Moore reports.
Perhaps one of the finest free kicks ever witnessed at Wembley Stadium, and one which offers Spurs a financial lifeline. Spurs' semi-final victory over Arsenal could mean as much as £2 million in hard cash in cup final spin-offs. Spurs need to win. In 3 years, they've trebled their turnover to nearly £30 million, and yet they've gone from £2 million in the black to £18 million in the red. There's a wolf at Tottenham's door. It takes the form of a griffin. It's the Midland Bank, already jittery over its own poor performance last year, which yielded only £11 million profit. Spurs' £11 million overdraft cost them £40,000 a week in interest payments alone. The bank can foreclose on Tottenham at a moment's notice, so whether there'll be a Tottenham Hotspur Football League club next year has been brought sharply into focus by crippling debt.
Gascoigne! Yes!
Time is running out. Bewildered fans and shareholders alike have already demonstrated their anger. They feel cheated and deceived by the company's directors.
I think it's been quite disgraceful, really, for shareholders to be kept in the dark and supporters in the way that they have has been dreadful for us, and we really need to know far more about what has happened.
They had the EGM recently, and they had the figures from March. I mean, that's 9 months later, and they still weren't proper. They're not up to date. They're not making clear what has gone on. Where has the money gone?
Fans place the lion's share of the blame for total liabilities of nearly £23 million on the two principal directors, Irving Scholar, chairman of the football club, and Paul Bobroff, until recently chairman of the holding company. The early 80s, and on the field the team was enjoying a revival of its fortunes with successive cup final victories. But off it, Spurs owed £5 million on the new West Stand. Bobroff and Scholar blamed the directors and thought they could do better. The Spurs motto, "To dare is to accomplish," perfectly illustrates Bobroff and Scholar's method of staging a remarkable coup d'etat. Alex Finn, co-author of a book on the politics of modern soccer.
They wrote to females and widows on the assumption that they weren't necessarily interested in the club, but had just inherited the shares from their erstwhile partners. And these people sold their proxy votes to Messrs. Scholar and Bobroff.
How much did it cost them?
I think probably just a little over £500,000, which was a very cheap price to take over a major football institution.
Next season, Tottenham Hotspur plc becomes the first league club to be quoted on the stock market.
We don't believe here that we can compete, certainly with the top European clubs, where they can perhaps take £1 million for one game, such as Juventus and Milan and Roma and so forth in Italy, and Madrid and Barcelona in Spain. And therefore we feel that it's very important to be less reliant on football income and expand in other areas.
Paul Bobroff was very much the feet on the ground businessman, trying to make sure that everything Tottenham did was solid, whereas Irving was more of the entrepreneur and prepared to slide schemes in and try them out. He was hell-bent on attracting as much income from outside footballing activities as possible, and he was 100 ideas a minute man.
A new beginning for some maybe, but the end for the successful team manager.
More and more the directors were looking towards the PLC side of the business rather than the football. And I happen to think, as football manager, that the biggest thing that could happen at Tottenham Hotspur was to be successful on the football field. And if that happened, then everything else would look after itself.
Tottenham's aim was a huge business empire to finance the football club. Their first venture was Hummel UK, a company set up to exclusively market and distribute the Danish firm's leisure wear. For most football clubs, diversification means running their own travel clubs or supporters' shops, selling replica kits and receiving a small commission from the makers for each sale. But that wasn't good enough for Tottenham Hotspur plc.
Irving wanted to go much wider than that and do it not only for Spurs but for other clubs. But I thought that was running before we could walk.
Tottenham supplied team strips and replicas to their rivals, including Southampton, Aston Villa and Wimbledon. These clubs were dissatisfied and complained of late deliveries, like this 1989 centenary shirt delivered in 1990, and difficulties in getting shirts and shorts to match. Hummel sold not just football merchandise, but anything from jogging suits to bikinis. For 4 years, Tottenham's shareholders were constantly assured about the growth of the Hummel operation. We repeatedly asked Tottenham where the money had gone. They refused to take part in this programme. So we asked a firm of insolvency experts to examine Tottenham's accounts. Not only the group accounts presented annually to shareholders, but those of all the subsidiaries filed by law at Companies House in London.
The biggest problem of all appears to be in Hummel UK, with which Tottenham Hotspur plc parted company in March 1990. That company, although it did have significant increases in turnover, never ever traded at a profit. And up until the 31st of May 1989, again, those being the last accounts which were filed, their losses, accumulated losses, are in excess of over £1 million. And those losses have completely wiped out any profits which have been made by the other subsidiaries.
So in some way the Hummel company became a millstone round Tottenham's neck?
Oh, absolutely, and coupled with the fact that the loan of approximately £3.5 million, which was made by the holding company to Hummel, had to be written off in the accounts of the holding company. The total losses there are probably in excess of £4 or £4.5 million.
This is Allen. Lineker.
Hummel was a missed opportunity. Spurs had alienated the sportswear retailers by reducing their profit margins from the customary 35% to a basic 10%. Tottenham say they were forced into this unprofessional corner by rising costs from the Danish manufacturers. After 4 loss-making years in Tottenham's care, a phoenix has risen from the ashes. Inside a year, Hummel's own company is trading at profit.
Certainly since 1989, Tottenham embarked on a distribution and pricing policy as far as the sports trade, which had made the sports trade unhappy.
So how important is it to a company like yours to have the confidence of the high street traders?
Absolutely vital, in our opinion. Certainly to my knowledge, there's been no successful sports brand on the UK market that has succeeded without the support of the sports trade.
So what was the net result of the way in which Tottenham were trying to market in the high street?
Through the sports outlets, an increasing number of sports retailers for a period of time actually boycotted the Hummel product until we actually set up a new organisation.
Now, since you've taken over, has the company managed to make a profit?
Yes, we have been very successful in our short time.
But Hummel wasn't the only missed opportunity on the road to diversity. The shareholders must now wonder how on earth they spent £3.5 million on a cottage industry. In December 1987, Tottenham Hotspur came here to Hugglescote in the heart of Leicestershire to purchase 2 small companies trading in knitwear, one in ladies' fashions and the other in cricket clothing. In Tottenham's hands, Martex and Stumps continued in profit until the long hot summer of 1989. Sales in knitwear faltered. It was the first hiccup for Martex, a small setback which should have been manageable. Spurs, however, could not sustain the company through the crisis because by now their other acquisitions were in dire straits. And so today, 4 years after being in the custody of Tottenham Hotspur plc, both Martex and Stumps have ceased trading. Spurs fans may find it hard to swallow that manager Terry Venables has been unable to strengthen the team's defence because of a venture into selling Nicolucci ladies' jumpers made in Korea. An even harder pill to swallow is that they still owe a former Martex director, Barry Kennedy, £1 million. Spurs misses weren't confined to the rag trade. They bought out the ailing Synchro Systems computer company, which handled their membership and ticket arrangements. Synchro actually sponsor Crewe Alexandra, but they've never made much money. Where Tottenham Hotspur PLC has scored is in the cash generated by two of its business arms, the football club itself and Cockerell Books. These funds service the debts of the group as a whole. Tottenham also sold off the team's training ground at Cheshunt for £5 million to housing developers. At almost £9 million, the East Stand cost twice the original estimate and was undoubtedly the biggest and costliest gaffe of all. Supporters and shareholders alike are outraged that two skilled property developers like Bobroff and Scholar should allow this to happen, especially since they'd used a similar financial mess over construction of the West Stand to seize control of the club.
We went very close to the brink with the West Stand, and we got through that by piling a lot of commercial money through the selling of executive boxes and what have you, and the facilities in the West Stand. I was surprised that Spurs had gone back into that situation so relatively quickly after having nearly got their fingers burnt with the West Stand.
The unfinished stand meant postponement of the opening game of 1988. Spurs lost 2 points and were fined by the league. They reacted by sacking Wimpey, the original contractors, but still had to pay them over £3 million after Wimpey took them to court. It then cost a further £5.6 million to hire a second firm of builders to complete the job. Spurs think they've spent the Midland Bank's money wisely because it adds value to the ground they own and it provides spectator facilities in keeping with the findings of the Taylor report into ground safety. But it was money they simply could not afford. Now, star players were to be sacrificed to pay off debts.
To Scholar, the importance of the public company was that it should make Spurs into a great football club. To Bobroff, it was that when the public company hit bad times, the football club should help. Scholar always harks back to the double team, and he could see in his mind's eye a vision of a new double team with Lineker, Waddle and Gascoigne, and he determined not to sell Waddle until such a point that the money became ridiculous. At that point, there was also the pressure from Bobroff that they needed the money because of commercial ventures. And in fact, the money that Venables thought he was going to get to rebuild the team, he didn't get in its entirety.
Out went Chris Waddle for £4.5 million. Out also went 6 reserve players for a further £1 million. In for only £1.5 million came Sedgley, Vandenhouw and Edinburgh.
When Irving Scholar and his pals came into the club as directors, we put our faith in them. We thought they were shrewd businessmen who supported Tottenham, and we felt that they would help build the club up and that they'd take the club from strength to strength. We thought that what would happen was that their idea of starting up new companies to subsidise the football side so that Tottenham could compete on the transfer market with the big European clubs was a good idea. Unfortunately, the execution of the idea has been terrible, and instead of the companies subsidising the club has subsidised the companies.
Economics, obviously, in as far as everything, will dictate which way the industry goes. But what I would say to you is that football cannot afford to continually lose money, because eventually companies that continue to lose money eventually go broke.
Even as he spoke, Irving Scholar's own company was crippled with debt, and soon he was to eat his own words when Spurs' desperation for cash finally became public knowledge. Tottenham owed Barcelona transfer money for Naeem and Lineker. When Irving Scholar secretly arranged a loan from Robert Maxwell, the stock exchange found out and suspended Tottenham's shares. Scholar was in breach of Section 317 of the Companies Act and therefore had exposed himself to criminal prosecution because he had not consulted his fellow directors or the shareholders. Yet we have discovered that this was not the first time Scholar had been in the midst of secret negotiations. Former Spurs manager Terry Neal is now a sports consultant who set up talks with an Indonesian firm called Mindo, who were offering £5 million to buy unissued Tottenham shares. But eventually Mindo pulled out of negotiations.
It was the Mindo people here who got in touch with me during the negotiations and asked me to have a quiet word with Irving and just to emphasise to him that these things, we're talking about a lot of money, these things take a little time, but they just felt a little uneasy. They was perhaps pushing a little too quickly.
I think that Terry Venables has had a really hard time in the last couple of years. He's obviously not been able to improve the team when it's been on the verge of possibly winning things, and that's a pity really, because Tottenham's always been a big club who have been able to afford that extra player when necessary and make themselves into the football team that we all know.
That is the tragedy of the situation, that if you could wind back the clock, a sadder, wiser man would have said, let's build the team on the field first, because that's what we're all in it for.
Ironically, the ones who could come out of this best are the millionaire majority shareholders Bobroff and Scholar. If they sold their shares now, they would make a substantial profit.
Chris Moore reporting there. Now, like it or not, money makes the football world go round. You may have read about the players' pool at Spurs, set up by soccer agent Eric Hall to cash in on the media's insatiable appetite for cup final stories and pictures. Make a financial contribution to the pool, and Gaza and the chaps will smile for the camera. Increasingly in football, agents are calling the tune, negotiating players' contracts, and even getting involved in transfer deals. But, as Sean Penlington discovered, they're not the most popular people in the game.
At just 17, the talent is obvious. Stephen Watson is the latest model to come off the Tyneside soccer production line. Some say he could be better than Gaza, but it's his potential to earn a similar fortune that's attracting unwanted attention.
I've had about 9 or 10 agents contact us in different ways, whether it be letters, whether it be one of their players telling us about them, whether it be telephone call. But my parents and a few friends at Newcastle have handled them for us, so I've really had little to do with them. Well, the PFA know exactly what a player's salary is, and they know exactly what I should be earning, what I shouldn't be earning. And basically they're there to help me, whereas an agent might have been there, obviously to help us, but they'd have been earning money which would have been my money.
Agents elbowed their way into the game through players needing financial guidance. Now they're a byword.
It's very, very easy to be deceived by a flash agent who has the portable phones, the big cars, the big house. And if somebody like that promises you big money in the future, it's very hard to say, well, I can't tell what's up front and what's actually substance. It's very difficult for a young man of 18, 19 to say, well, no.
People with no knowledge of football whatsoever come, put a basis in there and start to rate football clubs, footballers and the game of football, when that money should be going back in towards football.
Famous footballers were always celebrities, but now it's show business. When you earn as much money as Paul Gascoigne for off-the-field activities, it needs looking after. Gaza isn't as daft as he makes out. He has an accountant and a solicitor. For others, first choice is the agent.
Well, it's definitely been
Behold Eric Hall, the agent at work.
Well, it definitely, he swore he sent them yesterday, on Thursday. Wednesday, yeah, a couple of days ago.
Eric Hall doesn't know a lot about football, but show business he's good at. A product of the Italia Conti stage school, he has represented a host of stars on stage, screen and pitch.
When I first got involved with the football world, it was, agent, you're an agent, God, terrible agent. And I don't think it's as bad as that anymore anyway. I think players now, managers now, and chairmen will sit and they do negotiate with players. I mean, they're not supposed to, but I think even the Football League recognise that players do use agents. And I don't think they don't get wrapped anymore as much as they used to do. I think we are now more accepted. I think we actually are accepted. We're here.
I don't see footballers as being any different from any other entertainer, be they a pop star, be they a boxer, a rugby player. They're all entertainers and as such have very limited time to concentrate on anything but their art form.
What a player and his agent get up to away from the club is a matter for them. It's in the boardroom where the problems begin. The Football League regulations are quite clear about what role the agent should play in here. None whatsoever. Regulation 80. All transfers of registration and contracts of service shall be arranged directly between the clubs concerned and the player, and not through or by an agent. Not only is this rendered meaningless by reality, frankly, it's unfair.
It can be a no-win situation for a prodigious 19-year-old who's got so much talent. And if he goes in to negotiating with a manager who's 40, 50 or whatever, who usually bulldozes him on the training ground, then he's going to bulldoze him in his office as well to sign a contract which might not be in his best interest. And that's why I say that a lot of players do need help.
You go in to see the manager and with what you think you're worth, and then he'll put those down and basically go, oh, that's nice, and you go away and discuss it. I mean, before you get in there, you know what you want, and then when you get in there, it's a different story. So it is very intimidating.
And he walked into that room all on his own, a young 20-year-old boy, and there'd be the chairman and the club secretary and the manager and maybe the manager's assistant, and he's going to say yes to everything. There's somebody there really of the kind of an in-between man say, hold on a minute, yeah, I know it's a great club and the best, great club, but that's not right.
The Professional Footballers Association don't think it's right that an agent takes 20% of the fee they've just negotiated. That can run into thousands. For just £150 an hour, the PFA will do exactly the same job. Former Liverpool defender Mark Lawrenson aims to beat agents at their own game, on and eventually off the field.
The thing is, when you're earning good money at your age, there's a tremendous temptation for a lot of young players to go out and spend it. Yeah. You know, because you've never had money.
When
before,
Stephen Watson was signing for Newcastle, he used the PFA, not an agent.
If you start putting the money away, why should an agent earn money or a percentage of a player's wages for what a player does anyway? I mean, what we're saying to players is, look, if you have an agent, okay, don't give him any money. Don't give him any money as regards your wages, your signing on fees. Okay, if the guy's going to get you a boot deal or a sponsored car or, newspaper articles, and he's going to pay you and he's going to take money, fine. But for actually your God-given talent, what you actually go out and do on the field, why should you pay anybody?
I would take 20% of all off-field activities, sponsorships, so maybe newspaper articles, whatever it may be, boot deals, so on and so forth. But when it comes to actually transfer negotiations, I would sit down with my player, and we would basically say that if we get that, you pay me this, and it's never as much as 20%, 19.5. No, it's never as much as 20%.
If proof were needed that the agent has arrived as a force to be reckoned with in football, John Smith is it. Chairman of First Artists Management, his sheer wealth of clients puts him on top of the agent's heap. He's broken the British transfer record 3 years running and represents the Football Association. He reckons agents give him a bad name.
I think you've got to input as well as take out. Where the main problem lies is where the agent gets involved. There's a kind of nebulous grey area in football that doesn't exist in any other sports. I mean, nobody questions Mike Tyson having an agent and manager representing him in his negotiations for his next fight. And nobody really questions a footballer signing a deal to wear a particular manufacturer's pair of boots. What they do question is when he leaves one football club and joins another, was the agent the catalyst? And if he was he acting in breach of Football League regulations?
If my player does not get a contract or a better contract, then he's going to be unhappy, and you know what an unhappy player is like. That very veiled threat is something which, I didn't take kindly to and I didn't really appreciate.
Adrian, it's hard to say.
Certain agents who look after players of less repute have to go looking for deals. I think the problem evolves and begins to, really on a Monday morning when that particular agent or agents sit around and think, now, how are we going to pay the rent this week? We are going to transfer a few players. And that's when it begins.
Big money transfers make the headlines. Transfer speculations make even more, however spurious they turn out to be. Transfers are big business for agents.
It's in an agent's interest to sell a player because he's going to get a cut of the whatever the player makes out of the deal. So, of course, an agent could be a catalyst for unrest, because he knows that if he's got a player who is worth, say, £1 million, and he thinks that he can put forward the proposition of a transfer deal, he's going to make himself a very tidy amount out of that transfer. So before maybe the germ of an idea of a transfer is in a player's head, it's up almost certainly in the agent's head.
Now, at the end of the day, if you have a player can hand in 25 transfer requests every day of the week, you know, if a manager doesn't to accept them, and the keeper saying they're under contract. Now, assuming the manager will then accept that transfer request, say, OK, chap, you're on the transfer list, you're on the list. Now, I can't see any harm if I'm not saying I do, but if I happen to phone up another club and say, hey, you're looking for a left back. Now, are you aware that so-and-so is available?
I can quote you chapter and verse on Football League regulations, and I would be foolish to sit here and say to you, no, I don't break the Football League regulations. I think there's a number of parties in the Football League, including clubs, directors, managers, agents, Football League officials, who are in breach of Football League regulations. But those particular regulations are not pertinent to the game as we view it now.
The Football League Agents Subcommittee was set up last year to discuss the activities of the more entrepreneurial players' representatives. Letting them in to negotiate terms of contract was not up for discussion. The chairman, Professor Sir John Wood, is drafting a report on the subject. This may or may not contain recommendations which may or may not be published during the summer, but when it is, the committee will meet again to discuss it. Meanwhile, back at ground level, it's every manager for himself.
You can't regulate them. You can't. If somebody chooses for me to be their agent, I might be the worst. Actually, I'm the best. I could be the worst. But that is their decision to have me Eric Hall. Now, if they've made a mistake, that's their problem.
Decisive in extra time.
A welcome home, tumultuous, ecstatic, thrilling for those aboard the Tottenham bus who've won the cup, and for those who've turned out in their thousands, young and not so young, to welcome them home. It's 7 years, you know, since Tottenham last brought a trophy back to North London, 9 years since the FA Cup was last paraded here. The 2-mile journey to the town hall is scheduled to take 2 hours, but progress predictably is even slower than expected. As the crowds get deeper, the warmth of their welcome ever more intense. Understandably, those crowds were at their densest outside White Hart Lane itself, the home of Tottenham Hotspur. And in these parts, they call it a right old knees up. That's good for us. What? That's it. Terry, it's a marvellous welcome for you.
You interrupted me there. I just spotted our bank manager. That's a great welcome. Yeah, couldn't have been better. And when you see them as happy as they are today, it makes everything worthwhile. Yeah, it's a great day.
And it means a great deal to everybody here. That's the amazing thing.
It's fantastic. When you see the faces and the happiness in their faces, it is a bit special. Look, have a look on there. Have a little.
I've seen the odd tear around on the bus.
Have you really? I mean, yeah, well, it's an emotional day, and it's yesterday, you know, after the game, it goes by so quickly, and you can savour it a bit better on the next day. It's still just as enjoyable, though.
I can hear 1 or 2 people chanting, "Don't go, Terry," as well. You heard that?
Yeah, once or twice. Yeah.
And that affects you?
Yeah, of course it does. Yeah, it's nice. It's a good feeling.
And I see you've got your father behind you over there, Fred.
Yeah,
He's enjoyed it.
Fred's enjoying himself up there.
Many congratulations. Enjoy the day.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Just in Edinburgh, a marvellous reception for you.
Brilliant, you know, it's the fans' day as well as ours, and they deserve it, you know. They've been tremendous all year with the problems off the field, and, you know, it's good to see them enjoying themselves.
A year ago, could you have thought you'd be involved in this sort of thing?
No, not 12 months ago. It's turned around for me a lot in the last 12 months, you know, and just unbelievable, really.
And the South End will be proud today.
Yeah, I'd say they had their celebrations last week. They went up into the second division, so it's my turn today, and so hopefully just enjoy myself.
Do that. David Howe's a local lad. I mean, some people think Spurs don't bring their own young players through, and you're proof that they do.
Yeah, myself and Vinny have both been in the side most of the season, and there's a lot of good young players at the club, and there always has been good young players coming through. It's just a case of getting the chance and then taking it.
Did you believe a day like this would ever come for you?
You hope. You don't ever really believe it until it actually happens, and today's just fantastic.
And you're enjoying it, no question.
Oh, you know, it's just you dream of these sort of days, and this is fantastic. You know, I don't know what to say.
Congratulations, thanks very much indeed. Thank you. Captain Gary Mabbott, a great day for you.
Yes, a very proud moment for me. It's tremendous, yes, actually picking up the cup. But today the sports have come out in numbers, and I think they've had given a lot to cheer now. They've had a very difficult season. I think now's the time they come out, they're celebrating, and I'm making the most of it.
And a contrast with '87.
Certainly, obviously in '87 we'd lost. We did the same tour, but it was a very low-key atmosphere, I'm afraid.
You've got half the cup with you.
Yes, we can carry around. We're standing at the front, and I think Eric Torsen had the cup for most of the day. He's the strongest, you see. But the fans are tremendous. I think everyone's just enjoying themselves, making the most of it.
And tonight, time to relax at last?
Well, yes, the thing is, we've got a game tomorrow night against Manchester United, so yes, have to curb the celebrations for the rest of the day and perhaps start again after the game tomorrow.
So that'll be quite an occasion with United having won a cup as well?
Yes, it should be a great occasion, because obviously United will be parading the European Cup Winners' Cup, and hopefully we'll take the FA Cup up there with us as well, so it could be quite a night up at Manchester.
Many congratulations, thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
David Davis enjoying the celebrations on the bus on its way to the Tottenham Town Hall. Marvellous day for all those behind the scenes at Tottenham, as well as the stars, of course. We'll have more scenes for you to enjoy as Tottenham make their way, as I say, to that Town Hall. But in 25 minutes' time, we'll have highlights of the Scottish Cup final at Hampden Park, Dundee United against Motherwell. And don't forget the Welsh Cup final, Swansea against Wrexham. That's coming up at 5 o'clock. But now we're going back to Donington Park. There's Terry Venables enjoying very much the homecoming they're getting today.
Gary, it's a terrific sight there behind you.
It is. It's nice because a lot of these people couldn't get tickets for the game, and it gives them a chance to see the team. The way the cup final ticket allocation is now, it's difficult for them, but the real supporters are out here today.
How does it compare to other occasions, similar occasions you've known?
Well, better than anything, really. It's the best experience I've had as far as winning something. I won the Spanish Cup and the European Cup Winners' Cup in Barcelona, which was special. But, I think as a one-off occasion, the cup final does have its certain magic, and it was thoroughly enjoyable.
And you can see how much it means to people around here.
That's right. It means so much to so many people, and that's why they turned out today to show their appreciation, and I'm sure you we're enjoying it as well.
You've got a game tomorrow.
We have, and I would think Man United will probably be in about the same state as us, so God knows what they'll have to expect it there, but I would think it'll be a carnival atmosphere. I don't know whether both cups will be paraded around, but I don't think there'll be too many heavy tackles going.
Enjoy the day, thanks very much. Paul, I talked to a few London lads on the bus. A northern lad here celebrating a London victory.
Yes, well, I mean, I don't think it matters where you're from. You know, it's a team victory, and whether you're from London or Manchester or wherever, if you're part of the team, it's brilliant.
It must be particularly sweet for you after your performance yesterday, and I mean, you're one of the great heroes here.
Well, yeah, I mean, you'd be silly not to enjoy this, wouldn't you? I mean, it's been like a dream couple of days for me. You know, scoring at Wembley, we won the cup, and now all these people here.
When you started out as a professional, I mean, did you dream of days like this?
I think every professional footballer does. I mean, those that say they don't, you know, are only kidding themselves. I mean, there's There's nothing better than winning the FA Cup, nothing.
And it'll live with you for a long time?
Oh, certainly will, certainly will.
Many congratulations.
Thanks
very much indeed.
Cheers, thank you.
Started off though as a youngster with Spurs. Did you dream of days like this?
Oh, it's everybody's dream to play in an FA Cup final, and yesterday it was my dream come true.
Thanks very much, Paul Allen. Of course, you've known this before with West Ham.
That's right, it's 11 years ago now, but I think this tastes a little bit sweeter, I think. Harder to come by the second time, and it was the way things seemed to be going against us at the start, and to come through and win was fantastic.
Did you sleep last night?
No, I didn't sleep, but I think Vinny was the same, had the same problem, so it made me feel a little bit happier that someone was exactly the same as I had the night before.
And when you look out and you see the fans, I mean, it means an awful lot to the fans here.
Well, especially with the difficult times that we've had, but it's been nice that we put those things behind us and brought home the cup.
Thanks very much indeed, thank you. At the Town Hall in Tottenham High Road, the biggest crowds of all. They'd been gathering since the early hours of this morning. Like a few of the Spurs players, you could be sure some hadn't slept last night. It's 10 years since this town hall had seen a winning welcome like this for Tottenham. It made up for the waiting with the sheer noise of its reception.
What a wonderful atmosphere there at Tottenham, all very much enjoying that. There's Gary Mabbott enjoying his moment with the cup, like he did yesterday, very happy.
Next season because of the knee injury which put him in hospital during yesterday's FA Cup final.
This evening Gascoigne is preparing to spend his second night in this private London hospital. But it's still unclear whether specialists are judging this morning's operation a success. The surgery may have jeopardised his £8 million transfer to Italy. And it provides Tottenham with major problems, even in the immediate aftermath of their FA Cup triumph. The club physiotherapist visited Gascoigne this afternoon, confirming the injury and pleading for privacy.
Ligamentous injury to his right knee. I prefer you now really to leave him alone. It is a private hospital and that's what it does mean, and I think it's only fair on him now. It's comfortable, but to leave him alone, give him a little bit of peace.
Gascoigne's injury was a result of his crashing tackle into a Nottingham Forest player, and it raised immediate questions about his footballing future. Officials from the Italian club Lazio were at Wembley yesterday, and today they're waiting to hear from the doctors before deciding whether to press ahead with their transfer bid. Robert Moore, ITN, Central London.
Gascoigne's victorious Spurs teammates have been given a rapturous welcome by their supporters. More than 200,000 line the streets for a parade to celebrate the club's 2-1 win over Nottingham Forest.
To give nothing away to the photographers and reporters who've been camped outside the hospital since Saturday. It was left to a royal-style bulletin to announce the success of the knee operation and the optimistic prediction that Gascoigne will be playing again by Christmas. It was news which put a better gloss on Tottenham's financial problems, brought on by failed business deals and a bank overdraft now running at £20 million.
Hopefully Gascoigne will recover. They will be playing in a major European tournament next year. They have a major pre-season festive occasion at Wembley. Income will be coming in. They should be very successful on the field, and by so doing they will be able to keep the Midland Bank at bay by paying interest on the loan.
Meanwhile, the referee at Saturday's Cup final says he should have cautioned Gascoigne for his foul on Gary Charles.
I made a mistake, an open, honest mistake. I was going to caution him. People on the ground actually saw me getting the book out of my back pocket. And the trainer looked at me and said, "Roger, he's finished."
Gascoigne's view isn't known, but fellow footballer Glenn Roeder, who visited him today, said they discussed the match, and he described his friend's mood as very positive. But despite the optimistic statements, there are still many question marks over the future of Paul Gascoigne and Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. Without the £8 million they'd hoped to get from his transfer to Italy, Spurs' finances now appear to be in much the same condition as their star player. Harry Smith, ITN, Central London.
High Street injury has put Tottenham under new financial pressure, with the Italian club Lazio having to reconsider its £8 million offer for him.
Paul Gascoigne's father has now been to see his son, who's recovering in a West End hospital from what his club describes as a successful operation on the damaged ligaments in his right knee. Tottenham expressed confidence today that Gascoigne will be playing again by Christmas. The question is, for whom? Lazio's training session this morning was dominated by talk of whether Gascoigne will or won't be joining them. The club first accepted that the deal was almost certainly off. Now it seems it's keeping its options open.
We are waiting for an official report, and we did ask for an official statement being released by the attending doctor.
Tottenham's players arrived in Manchester at lunchtime for tonight's game with United. Most now think that Gascoigne will stay.
I would think it's fairly logical that he'll be around at Tottenham for some time to come, I would imagine.
Both Lineker and Paul Stewart, the scorer of Tottenham's first goal on Saturday, may be vulnerable to transfer if Spurs fail to capitalise on Gascoigne, or has failed to relieve the club's grave financial difficulties.
In Florida, the Queen has presented...
It's very easy to identify with being an actor.
Since the extent of the injuries became known, will throw the financial future of Spurs into even more turmoil. Here's Graham Miller. Sharon Doughty is at the Princess Grace Hospital now. Sharon, is there any indication at all of how long Gaza is going to stay in hospital?
Well, Andrew, I've spoken to Gaza's consultant surgeon today. He says it's going to be 10 days to 2 weeks before there's any chance of Gaza going home. When he does go home, he'll be on crutches, then after that he'll wear a knee brace, and then it'll be months and months of intensive physiotherapy. It's apparently a very painful condition, but doctors are controlling the pain with drugs. Gaza's had cards and flowers from well-wishers today and a visit from his dad, but doctors here are very optimistic. They say Gaza will be back. Now back to the studio.
Feverish, and it's likely to be at Old Trafford tonight. Tottenham are £20 million in debt. The Midland Bank in particular want their £10 million back. The club were going to sell Paul Gascoigne this week for £8.5 million to Italian club Lazio. But after Saturday's final, he's in Princess Grace Hospital off Marylebone Road, where he's had a successful operation on his right knee, but it could keep him out of soccer until after Christmas. Spurs manager Terry Venables spent the day working yet again, now on a solo offer to buy the club. Irving Scholar, chairman of the football club, was also working on his own financial rearguard action. Meanwhile, on Saturday afternoon at Wembley, the rest of the players did enjoy themselves.
In winning the FA Cup, but it was almost overshadowed by an earlier injury to Paul Gascoigne, which may put an end to his much-rumoured £8.5 million move to the Italian club Lazio. While Gascoigne was at the Princess Grace Hospital undergoing an operation to repair right knee ligament injury, the rest of the Spurs team was celebrating their FA Cup victory.
It's lucky for Spurs when the year ends in one. They first won the cup when the century began. It's lucky for Spurs.
We went to see him last night. Obviously, he's very upset because obviously it's a nasty injury that we think he probably got, and he wanted to be with us last night, be with us today to join the celebrations, but unfortunately that wasn't possible. But you know, he was in quite good spirits, but obviously very emotional.
Obviously, he was quite down, but it was kind of an emotional moment when we, came in there with the trophy to him and everything. So gave him his winner's medal. So he should treasure that.
Tottenham's only goal scorer, Paul Stewart, was trying to remember how he scored.
I can't remember much about it. I'll have to watch it on TV first. I haven't seen it. I just remember Paul Allen give it to me on the right wing, a cut-in shot. Just managed to go in the back of the net.
It was brilliant the way they fought. It's a shame about Paul Gascoigne going off because I know he worked hard to sort of get them there. But it was really good. The boys sort of rallied and done really, really well.
However, not all the Spurs supporters were happy about the team's all too brief appearance before the fans. And as for the club's future...
I don't know anything about the club's future. I don't even know whether it's got one, has it?
hope it has. Yesterday afternoon, thanks to a last-second equaliser by Kevin Godfrey, Brentford's playoff place remained on hold against Tranmere. So,
The Spurs players brought the cup with them tonight as they arrived for their final league match against Manchester United, but no Paul Gascoigne. He was confined to bed in a West London hospital, admiring the flowers sent by fans. His operation yesterday was successful, according to a news bulletin from the hospital. But the surgeon who repaired the famous knee says it could be a year before Gascoigne plays again. A year is almost certainly too long for Lazio, the Italian club who wanted to pay £8 million for Gaza. The club said no decision had been taken on the transfer, but Italian newspapers today feared the worst. Gascoigne and Lazio in tears, said one. Goodbye, Gascoigne, another. Gascoigne's injury, stalling the Lazio deal, has increased the financial pressures on Tottenham Hotspur. Apart from Gascoigne, the only asset which the company could sell to clear its debts is the ground, White Hart Lane, and that only as a last resort. The club's parent company, Tottenham Hotspur plc, owes £12 million to the Midland Bank, repayable at the end of this month. If most of the team was sold off, that would bring in about £4 million. Gascoigne until Saturday was worth £8 million. But with his future uncertain, that leaves the club in theory able to raise only £4 million to pay off the money owed to the Midland. The bank could blow the whistle on Tottenham Hotspur. More likely it'll grant a reprieve because of earnings to come from European games next season.
There's an immense amount of money to be earned in television rights. Spurs will be playing in a major European competition. The Midland will see that there is money coming in, and I think Spurs will be able to keep the majority of their players.
Whether they'll keep the manager, Terry Venables, is less certain. Nothing's been heard today of a financial rescue package he proposed a month ago.